What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy. And I know that's not typically the intro that we do for this particular podcast. I had to find some guests to help me talk about this next topic. And before we get into the topic, I'll let the guests introduce themselves. So, know if you want to go first, and then, Kev, you can follow up after him.
Yeah, Noah McGee, living in Chicago right now. Staff writer at the Root. Write a lot about music, interview artists sometimes, and a lot of other stuff. But yeah, that's me.
For sure.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Kevin, St. Louis, USA. I typically have the most unpopular opinion, so we'll see how many people agree with what I'm saying or actually enjoy with what I'm saying. So I'm here representing Even Flow Worldwide. I had to come kick with my boy Qual. So let's do this, man. Let's kick.
Man, yeah, let's get into it. We was talking about it right before we started recording, but both of them have actually been guests on Qualified TV. So the chemistry is already there. We're all talking about music. We talk about this all the time. So it's going to be a blast. But the topic we're getting into today is impressive or memorable debut albums. I specifically wanted to use those two words because I feel like best is very subjective. I don't know where we're going to get in a conversation about what the best debut album is, because as the industry changes, as time evolves, impact just looks different. We know certain things do transcend time, but I felt like memorable or impactful was a better way to kind of come up with the group of albums that hopefully we can. But yeah, man, I love the point that you were making before we started, but can you repeat, Kevin, the point that they make on the Joe Budden podcast about debut albums? Because I feel like that's a really good baseline and foundation, like, to really start the conversation.
Yeah, for sure, man. You have your entire life. You have the beginning of your career, basically. Combine those two. You have those two runs to make your introduction to what we know as hip hop, or we know as music, because this applies to other artists as well. Your whole life, whatever your influences were, whatever your like mood is, whatever your style is, your influence, all of that gets wrapped up into one with your introduction. Like, this is how you introduce people to who you are. This is how you get your first reach with a fan base. That first album is what creates transcendence, because we're always going to remember our favorites and what they were like when they first started. That doesn't mean you can't grow from it. And unfortunately, for some people, that means that's their ceiling. But the point is, there's a legend and a story to be told with that first album.
Yeah. Did you want to add any? I have like one nugget to add, but did you want to add anything to that, Noah?
Nah, I was just thinking like, and we talked about it a little bit too, like trying to prioritize albums that like I was actually there for. Because I was thinking about it, and I was thinking about the usual suspects, some of the ones that people like always name out and stuff like that, that are kind of like on your, I don't know, go to best albums of all time type list. But I
Yeah.
also try to think about albums that I was actually there for, and I personally remember listening to the debut of this album, be like, man, that was a moment for me. So even though it might not be like the perfect list of like the best, like you mentioned before, but trying to think about how I actually felt when that artist debuted that particular album and how it impacted me and the people around me is something I've really been thinking about now that that point was made. So yeah.
For sure. Do you all feel like debut albums are difficult, or do you think because you have that combination of like your life and then also the introduction of your career, because there's not, I guess, how does pressure weigh into that? Because I feel like pressure would be what makes it maybe difficult to put out what you want to put out, but not all artists have the same amount and type of pressure for their debut albums. So yeah, what's the balance of that you all think?
I think it depends, because I think now a debut album is a lot different than it was, I don't know, 20 years ago. Because like maybe 20 years ago, a debut album might literally be the first time you hear an artist. Now, artists, I mean, this is one of the artists I'm gonna bring up, but like thinking about like Nipsey Hussle, he had like 10, 20 mixtapes before he dropped his actual debut album. Like he was talking about that. He was like, yeah, people been waiting for this album forever, but he released so many other projects before then. And then his actual debut album wasn't really your actual introduction, but it might actually be his best work. So it's a lot different now, because I think artists have like the space of like putting out mixtapes and putting all these songs, I mean, all these projects that are on streaming services that sell, that are technically considered albums because they're selling, they're on streaming, they're on iTunes, whatever, people can buy it and stuff like that. But it's not considered a debut album. So I think there's a little more room for trial and error for artists nowadays. because of just the sheer amount of music people can just put out, SoundCloud, mixtapes, whatever the case may be, than it was maybe 20 years ago when debut album was your actual first introduction for an artist. So I think it's different based on like the era that you put out a debut album, especially like the last 10 years. So yeah.
Very fair. Yeah.
Mhm.
Anything to add, Kev?
Yeah, I think it varies on one, who it is, two, what the machine dictates. Because every artist that has a debut album, the placement of that debut album in their career, it could really vary. So we take somebody. I'm gonna throw out an old school example. Look at Snoop. So Snoop drops Doggy Style. That's '93. I was actually one, but that's the album I got to experience in my youth because it was that transcendent. But Snoop drops Doggy Style, but he's coming off of being a guest on The Chronic, which again he's being launched as Dre's debut artist. But at the same time, it's like, okay, you think of Snoop on Dre Day, and you think of what Dre has been doing with NWA years prior. Okay, this is a good launching pad for somebody like Snoop. You have the production of Dre and Daz Dillinger, et cetera, et cetera. And it was just a perfect like intro into music for him. Versus you fast forward, you use Noah used the example of Nipsey Hussle, where okay, he's slinging his own mixtapes. He's preaching the idea of being independent and having your own hustle as opposed to letting the machine control it. Everybody just receives that differently. You know what I'm saying? Two West Coast artists, for examples, but different eras, and they had different types of machines and circumstances pushing them. So I just think it varies on what that artist has going on, who they are, and what their launching pad is.
Yeah, no, I think those are great points. And there are so many different types of artists in the industry now that I think different genres even have different expectations of success, one, but then two, what a debut album means. Like in rap and hip hop, debut albums are a big deal because it's your first chance to like really establish yourself. Like, okay, what lane you getting in? Like, what are we listening to you for? It means something from a culture perspective. I think for some other genres, it might really just be an introduction to that artist, but there may not be as much that's added on to their resume, if you will, outside of whatever their discography kind of becomes, if that makes sense.
I think it's also kind of a test, like, because I think sometimes, especially now, you think, oh, this artist popping, because you know what I'm saying, like they have this big record, like for example, Ice Spice, for example. There's just like she has all these huge songs. She's super popular. She has big songs that are charting and all that stuff. But a debut album can really determine how much people really care, because there's artists out here that are putting out amazing singles, popular singles and whatnot. But when an album drops and them first week numbers come back, you're like, wow, that artist is not. I'm kind of thinking about like some artists going on tour right now, and like for example, Lil Baby, he's doing a arena tour. He's obviously a popular artist, whatnot. There's not like question if he's popping or not, but like you see that he has to cancel some of these arena tours because it's hard to sell out arenas, and he's like, wow, he's not quite as big as like I don't know a J. Cole or a Drake. Like there's kind of levels to it. So I think putting out an album also kind of determines how much people actually do care about music, that they're going to listen to it, buy it, stream it, etc. So I think that's also a big part, not just in terms of just introducing an artist, but in terms of seeing like how much pull do they actually have in the industry in terms of fans that are actually willing to buy and purchase their music and whatnot.
I think the when you drop an album is important too. A big thing we're seeing in the industry now is it's not when an artist is dropping, it's who's dropping around them.
Yeah.
Because a lot of artists, as we see, they're going to dodge the Drakes, they're going to dodge the Beyoncés, like.
Not Lil Tecca. You saw that? Lil Tecca dropping out when Drake dropped.
That's crazy.
Hey, man, listen. Yeah, that's he might have been trying to get noticed or something for doing that, but everybody know, like, we know who keeps the lights on at UMG. You know what I'm saying? So like everything on lock with something like Drake, something like Beyonce or Kendrick, Cole, whoever. Everybody knows that you got to dodge certain people. Now with that comes a little scramble. It's like, all right, if we gonna move out the way for them, then we might have to step on the toes of somebody that's not seen as big. You know what I'm saying? And the thing that comes with that is people get to choose their favorites and dismiss whoever, or honestly, they might have short-term memory with some of these people. That's what sucks about current trends in music right now. It's like, all right, I'm not gonna listen to this person because I'm still listening to Kendrick. I'm still listening to Drake. But then when that person does actually drop, I listen to it once. 3 days later, I'm on to something else. So it's a never ending battle for them.
Mhm.
Yeah, no, all great points. With that, I don't know. Throw the first. Each of y'all throw the first. I'm gonna let y'all lead. Honestly, I'm gonna come in with my albums later.